All right. All right, that's fine. Um, I'll just give a buffer of like 2 minutes so that everybody comes in, and then we can get started. Is that fine by everybody? All right, cool. Hello, what about now? Can everybody hear me? So it's just a minute more for I'm just trying to make sure everybody's gathered here. Um if you can't hear me, please let me know. I from my hand my network is strong. All right, guys. I think taking your time in the course of um okay. Please let me know if anybody can actually hear me. Okay, some people are saying they can't hear me, and some people are saying they can't hear me. So I'm trying to see a balance here. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Thanks. Then we'll go on like that then. All right. So yeah, I believe you guys have had some classes on UI design, basically from um, let's say basically, and today I'll be focusing on the next step for you guys. I am sure you guys have learned about objects, colors, gradients, and today we'll be learning about screen sizes and responsive, basically. So today will be basically for you to learn responsive designs, breakpoints, access areas, columns, grid margins, the grid points we have, and also auto layout in Figma. And so I think the beeping sound from my hand is from the chat you guys are sending. Can you still hear the beeping sound? All right, good. All right. Oh, the beeping sound is back. Okay. Please give me a minute. Let me see how best I can. My device is on DND, but I'm still getting the beeping sound. Basically, and the process consists of mix of flexible grids, layouts, images, and intelligent use of CSS media queries. As the user switches from their laptop to iPad, the website will automatically switch to accommodate for resolution, image, and scripting abilities. So in layman terms, this means the experience I'm getting on my phone should be slightly different from the experience I get when I'm visiting the same web page on laptops. The experience I'm getting should also be slightly different from the experience when I visit on my tablet. But it shouldn't be a drastic change. It should be more of accommodating how I am using the website or where I am using the website from. And also it talks about orientation in the sense that as a mobile phone, we have our landscape and the profile view when you're actually using a phone. And if I'm trying to lie down and I bend my phone, how best does this adapt? How best does this adapt to my viewing center? Basically, that is what responsive design is all about. And for a quick sample, I'll just show you an example of what responsiveness is. If we go to, let's say, yeah. So I have a sample I'll be using here. I have a sample that I'll be using here to just show responsiveness. This is a website, and I'm currently browsing on my system, so it's going to be showing as a full screen design, basically. And if I'm on my phone, how best am I going to see? How best am I going to see this? And that's where responsiveness comes in. So if I'm using an iPhone SE, this is how I'm supposed to see it. I'm still on the same website, but because I changed my orientation, it has brought it to a very usable state for me on my phone. If it's still showing the way it was showing on my web, I will have to be zooming in and zooming out. And if I'm on an iPad, let's say an iPad here, basically the orientation also changes. It tries to like show me enough content based on my screen size and based on my phone type, basically. If I'm on a dual, on a folding phone, these are folding phones, they are more narrow. It also tries to bring them to the narrow state. So basically, they are all responding as I change, screen, as I change my device. They are all responsive. So someone said, I think your network isn't so good. Currently my network health is actually very strong, so I'm not sure it is from my end. Basically. So yeah, that's what responsiveness is all about, trying to adapt to the screen size, trying to adapt to the home, you to the let's say the host of the application. That is what responsiveness is all about. So how do we get started with responsive design? Responsive design makes use of let's say grids, and grids are basically the way you actually lay out your screen sizes. Basically, when you want to design, most people design from different screen size, and we all have breakpoints when it comes to designing for responsiveness. So how does a grid look like? This is a sample of a grid. The most commonly used grid you probably come across is in web design is the 12 column grid. You don't have to use a 12 column grid. There are also ones of 24 column grid and 16 column grid. Just know that it always needs to be an even number. The important thing is that you understand how grids are set up, because they all follow what's the name? They all follow the same principle. So if this area in our browser window, you can see that the 12 column grid is kind of the on the top right here. The space between these columns, these ones I have in green, are called gutter. When you use a Bootstrap grid, for example, by default, the gutter is always set to 30 pixels, and you can adjust this to fit the size you are actually working on. So someone like me, I design in multiples 8, so most times my gutters are actually in multiples of 8. And I also personally like it fixed. So on this diagram, I'll show you these are columns, basically, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 stuffs are called rows. Rows are like majorly imaginary, so you may not be seeing it most of the time. They're imaginaries, and it's only the developers that actually fully understand the row. Someone said they can't see my screen. Sorry, please, can anybody see my screen? Oh, all right. I think if you can't see my screen, I think you should check your settings. I'm not sure. Okay. And if you can hear me, I think you should check your settings, because I think most of the people in the class can hear me and can see my screen. Okay. All right. So let's continue. So like I said, mostly a lot of us use the 12 column grid when it comes to responsiveness, and the 12 column grid is majorly made up of the gutters, the margins, and the rows. The margins are to the sides of the grid, and the rows are this imaginary box that I've laid out here. So why do we use okay, so sorry, I think people should stop texting. I'm kind of getting distracted with messages. All right. All right. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about the margins again. Like I said, everybody is used to the 12 column grid size, and it's not majorly 12 columns every time, depending on the screen size and your preference. So there are 12 column grids, there are 16 columns, there's 24, and this is going to be based on your preference and also the screen size. But for me, majorly I use the 12 column grid. 12 column grid, that was what I was accustomed to, basically. And in the 12 column grids, we have this highlighted in green is called the gutter, and we also have margins to the side of the grid. And then we also have rows. Rows are majorly imaginary, and they are like where we place our items in design, basically. So when you need to add things on your layout, basically you place them in rows, and the margins and the gutters are what actually guides us to placing them. And you can see my 12 column grid. I have divided them into different columns here. So right now you can see the 6 column means I have 6 different items here. That is, they are evenly distributed across the column. When I have them in 4, distributed across the column, and you can see I also have this row in 3, which means these are evenly distributed, and I also have them in 2s. It is not necessary that as I place this is how you actually design. Sometimes I can have 2 in different sizes, in the sense that instead of having this 6 column, or let's say this 2 column here, I can have my first one ending at this side and this one starting at this side, basically. So it depends on the kind of context you're actually having that determines how the rows play. Like I said, the rows are imaginary, but they are what guides us when um, the rows are imaginary. They are just usually the rows have the height of the content, and by the way, however, you can add background color, padding, and so on, just to adjust to your needs, basically. So if I am having images, this beeping sound is disturbing. If I am having images or text here, I'll be able to align using my columns and the gutter spaces, basically. Like I mentioned, we have 12 grid columns, and we have them in multiples of tools. So they have to be even. I'm showing a sample of how responsiveness comes in. So I showed earlier a 12 grid column, which is this. Also, this is me translating it on a canvas, basically. So this is a 12 grid column on a wide desktop. So if I'm trying to break this down, I'm trying to, like the sample I showed of go.com just now, if I'm trying to design for other screen size, will I also use 12 grid columns? It's going to be depending on how I am designing and the screen size I'm designing for. So right now I have for my desktop to be 12 grid column, and I also have for my tablet the landscape to be 8 grid column, and also my tablet, the portrait to be 8 grid column, and my mobile is 4 grid, basically, because it doesn't really make sense to have anything more than 4 on mobile because of the screen size, and also for tablet, it's basically almost a smaller version of what we have on the web. So how does responsiveness come in when it comes to design? Besides this column being grid type and elements to add in your structure, basically one of the main tasks for this grid is to add responsiveness behavior to your design. This means making design adapt to different screen size in order to guarantee the best design and usability experience. But how does a grid column do that? Now, even though we can set our grid in such a way that it adapts to different screen size, this is not enough for a real responsive experience, because the same layout might work well on a screen size, but not on a similar larger or smaller one. That is why we use something called breakpoint. So breakpoints literally break up the design in little ranges, and with those ranges, a certain design can be displayed. A certain design can be displayed. So let me just use this Logitech design to actually explain what the breakpoints actually is. So a lot of designers start designing from the web screen down to the mobile screen. But in real sense, when it comes to developers try to develop from the small screens to the large screen, which is what if you've added before, that's what they call mobile first. Here we have our mobile design, and to be honest, on a smaller device, basically such as mobile, usually don't display the 12 grid, like I mentioned earlier. You just have everything below one another. So things that you can see stacked up on mobile, they are always spread out on web. So from a certain size on, having, for example, images below one another is not going to work anymore. So you set a breakpoint that basically says that this size onward. So let's say if you are looking at this particular place my mouse is, you can see there's an arrow that has hidden a lot of things. Basically, this shows that on this screen we can't display what we've displayed on this particular screen. So basically, what happens? What we say is, okay, when you're on this small screen, hide some of these things and make an extra input for you to actually review them in a more suitable way. Because if we try to arrange everything that is added on this mobile, on this web page, it will look clunked up and it won't be neat as a design. So most time when we get to a particular screen size, we say, okay, remove this or arrange them in. Hello? Hello, did someone talk? Okay, I'll continue. Oh, all right. Okay. Your desktop. Yeah. So, like I said, the breakpoint dictates where we hide things, where we show things, where we also expand a lot of stuff. So basically, like, I started from mobile. I have spaces here. I don't have enough space here, but when I got to a tablet view, I have enough space to display more stuff. But because what I still want to display is actually too much, I'm still not displaying it on the tablet view. But when I got to web to the web view, because of the large screen space and size, and basically I was able to display them. This means for each of these points, we set a point that says, okay, at this point, do this. At this point, don't show everything. Now, in a very simple design, it might be fine like this, but design systems like Twitter, Bootstrap usually offer you up to 5 breakpoints. Most times, every design system you use the sorry, someone is speaking. All right. Okay. Um. So, um, I'm sure there will be questions about what kind of breakpoints should I use when I'm actually designing. So, like I said, depending on how many screens you are designing for, depending on the type of devices you are targeting, there are like standards to the screen size you should do. And I have more of like a diagram here that says extra small, small, medium, large, then extra large. These are like breakpoints that are commonly used in designing. If you are doing, let's say, maybe a portfolio project and stuff, you don't need to do too much because it should be more of an adaptive design that you'll be doing. And if you're doing more of a web design page, of a bigger design page targeted at multi people, who I think that's where you have to then do lots of breakpoints. So for me as a designer, there are multiple breakpoints I actually follow. I don't um, I don't limit myself when it comes to designing. So I'll just be showing the two styles of breakpoints I have registered. So top here is what we call is what Bootstrap uses. This is the Bootstrap design system, and this is their breakpoint. Basically, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 breakpoints, and their breakpoint is basically from extra large, which is 1,200 pixels above. They have the large, they have the medium, they have the small, and they have the extra small, which is like around 576 pixels. And the maximum container width for the extra small, they have none. For the small, they have 540 and 720 pixels, 960 pixels, and 1140 pixels, basically. And they also have their number of columns to be a 12 standard, and their gutter width, which is 30 pixels, 15 pixels on each side of a column. Like I mentioned in the other time that gutter width, a lot of people actually use 30. So Bootstrap also follows the 30. So when your developers are actually developing, they use gutter width. Also, for this second one, this is the Apollo design system. They also have almost something similar to what they have. The Apollo design system is basically the design system used by Logitech, and their breakpoints are also from let's say tablet of 720, 960, 1025, and 1490 above, basically. So the extra large is basically larger than what Bootstrap has mentioned. And they also have their columns to be 4, 8, 8, 12, 12. Basically, and their size padding is 24, 40, 40, 40, 40. And for their gutters, they have it as 24. So Bootstrap uses 30 for their gutter width, and Apollo actually uses 24. So they've already set up for you how best you should actually distribute your gutter designs, basically. So whether it is medium, large you're designing for, you can always get that done easily, basically. So one other thing I would like to talk about is when using responsive grid, you need to be aware that within your breakpoint, the grids can behave in different ways. Basically, the grid can behave in different ways, and there's a lot of misunderstanding happening between design and development. We tend to call all designs that worked across different size, across different screen size, responsive. But no, across different screen sizes, sometimes they are not responsive, sometimes they are just adaptive to the screen. So I'll be showing some example here, basically using this file. Yeah, so we have adaptive and we also have responsive design screens. So responsive design, there's however two ways the grade you can be able to achieve this. The first way is the so-called adaptive and responsive design. So I'll show a sample here. So for adaptive design, I have a medium screen design here actually, and my screen size right now is 808, which means I'm using a 12 grid column. And if I try to stretch it, if I try to stretch this design, basically you notice my column is fixed and it is actually moving with the screen basically, and it's all centered. This is because it is an adaptive screen and instead of a responsive screen. And I will just show a sample of how a responsive screen works. For this, if I try to stretch it, it remains stagnant. It's not that stagnant, but as it's responding based on how large the screen is, in the sense that my columns are not moving away from where they are. They are only just increasing in sizes, and my text and images are actually then responding to the size I'm moving them to. So there's something called adaptive and there's something called responsive. So sometimes there when you use adaptive, you still want to stick to how your layout is, but as you are moving across, it tends to stick to a particular a particular container. So the container never leaves the desired position. But when it comes to responsive, it leaves and tries to rearrange. And man, these beeping sounds are. All right. Please, can everybody hear me? Oh, all right. Sorry, I'm actually very distracted with with the sounds I'm hearing. So yeah, um, so responsive design and adaptive design. This both works for responsive screen designs, and it's just the way the classes are. So, like I said, adaptive design works with container in mind, basically, and responsive design works with a fluid uh, container. That is, it moves along the design. So, if I'm designing a website and I have set my margins to this particular size, like the margin I have here is about 24. If I've set it to it always keeps to that margin and tries to match what the design is. But if I'm using adaptive and it's fixed to a container, basically the container stays there that way and only increases the margin as I go. So this kind of design works a lot across multiple platform with the same sizes, basically. So how did I set up this design? Basically, I'll be going into that shortly. Quick question before we continue. Have you been introduced fully into fully into Figma? Yeah, Mark, margins for various column sizes are basically going to be depending on it's called the gutter size. Like I mentioned, the gutter size is called the margin. When I go hands on, you'll see how we actually set that up, and I will share that with you. Basically. All right. Okay. Okay. Kind of full at least lens shadow shapes frames. All right. All right. Cool. Okay. So okay. 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 That's interesting. Basically. So yeah, Figma is like the number one tool currently in the world for design. Basically, and it's used majorly by almost everybody. Although there are other tools too that you can use, but Figma is majorly what a lot of people use. I personally am I'm one leg in Figma and one leg out in Figma, out of Figma basically because I use other software tools to like use my most preferred is actually Adobe XD, but due to the ecosystem, you actually have to understand the basics and workings of Figma to be able to thrive well in this industry. Because as they are the industry leaders, they're more of like Photoshop for photography, and they are like the Photoshop of UI UX design. So basically, to get started in Figma on screens and or is it possible that you guys actually are on your system and you can join me on this file? Please let me know if you're actually on your system, then you can join me on this file so I can invite people to it. Okay, I'll be dropping the link on the chat. Anybody that wants to join can actually join as we work together. And before we continue, if you actually have questions based on everything I've said, I know I said a lot of things within a very short time. I'm kind of rushing it, don't mind me. And you can always draw me back to actually ask you a question. So if you have a question, you can just raise your hand and shoot, then I will try to answer your question. Okay. To make reference responsive, when we get to the hands-on time now, basically we'll get to that. We'll get to show you how to actually get your layout. Frames are not that super responsive, but you have to actually there's something called auto layout on Figma that you can then use to gimmick responsiveness. So when we actually get there, we'll see how it goes. Okay. So first thing on Figma, what I would like to show you is actually how to create different frames, basically. So when you click on this section of Figma, you see what we call frame. So one thing they've done for us is actually to provide us with multiple frame types. So we have for different screen size, from tablets to phones to desktop. Basically, you can select any one you like. So let's start with the phone size. This is the iPhone Pro Max screen size, and this screen size is 428. So definitely when you're designing, you know anything you're designing for this screen cannot work on a very small screen. There's no that means you can't design anything that shows here can actually not show on a bigger screen. So I'll be creating multiple frames for us to just work with. Let's say desktop. 1420, basically. Yeah. So for us to create frames, please say if you can make it responsive for that. You just need to design two different screen size. For you to make stuff responsive or adaptive, that's why I mentioned something earlier called breakpoints. You can't design for every screen size, but if you define your breakpoint as a designer, basically, and say, okay, this is my breakpoint, like I shared here. We have 520, 720, 960, 140. If you set aside your breakpoint, once you design for one particular screen, you'll be able to adapt it easily for any other screen. So it's a response for a developer. And I mentioned developers majorly start from mobile first so that they can scale it up to the large screens. Basically, so when they develop for mobile first, all they are doing is making sure everything is aligned on other screen sizes. So yeah, how do we create responsive layout on Figma? So I'm coming. Let me get the Bootstrap document from here. So I'll be using the Bootstrap methodology to create the container site. So right now I select my frame, and to my right you can see layout grid. When I click on layout grid, it is showing grids, but we don't want to use this particular grid. We don't want to use this particular grid. So hello. Hello, please, someone should mute the person that's talking. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now that I've created my layout, to the side here, this is my layout. It shows that I'm using a grid layout. So when I click on it, I come to where it says grid here, and I select columns. Because we are designing using columns, and yeah. So we are designing for a screen at about 1440. So that's an extra large screen. That is their max container is 140 each. So that's about greater than 120. That's an extra large screen. So the number of columns we'll be using here will be 12. So if I say my column count is 12, basically it is so now that we've made our column 12, our type will be stretch. This is a responsive style. Then our margin, our gutter says 30. So let's use 30, basically. So that is the distance between this guy to this guy is going to be 30. And we can add the margin of about, let's say, 30. Yeah. So basically, this is a 12 this is a 12 column grid, and it's the responsive style in the sense that like I showed earlier, I was able to use this to following the guidelines for Bootstrap. Basically, my extra large screen, which is about 1440, is basically on the count of 12. So I'm using a 12 number of columns. Basically, and my gutter width is actually 30. Then I personally added a margin of about 30 between away from the screen size. So so to just give us space. So if I'm going to be replicating this for another screen, I'll also be using this guide, basically. So if I'm doing for, let's say I'm creating for tablets, iPad mini, basically, all I need to do is create my layout grid, select the type of grid and select columns. My count also should be 12. Basically, I said in Bootstrap 30, and I can add my margin of let's say 30, basically. So anything I'm designing here will always move to this end, basically. Sorry, I need to take water. So yeah. So how do we know that this this is going to be working well as a design? So common mistakes people make when using this is a lot of people try to sometimes forget that they are supposed to snap to this guy. So when you are designing, you are meant to snap everything you're actually designing to match your columns, basically. So let's say we are creating a layout of multiple images, and like I mentioned earlier, we used imaginary rows. So this is my first row, this is my second row, and for my first row, let's say I'm going to be having text. So text, let's see. Yeah. Okay. My first image might be here. So I have my image to be here. I have another image to be here. Basically, then let's say my text then comes here. Sorry, I'll just be grabbing some text from somewhere else. From somewhere else. And just use this. Just use this. Yeah. So for this particular one, I've distributed my rows to form, let's say, yeah, so it's auto align as well. Basically. So yeah, for this one, I've kind of distributed it into three equal rows, basically. So I have my imaginary images here, basically, and then I have my text. So if this is going down to another screen, you can see it's trying to match up. Basically, it's not yeah, so this is this is here, this is here. So basically, if I'm arranging element on screen, I can arrange using my Gossage. So if, let's say, I have another row below it, and let's say the images are quite smaller than normal, let's say image goes here. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to match up with my columns rather than just, let's say I'm arranging them this way. So I'm using 3 each. I have my image and my text come down here. Basically, so if I reduce this to 24, this is 14. Save as 14, then yeah. So if I'm creating different rules, basically, sorry, if I'm creating different rules on the artboard, basically, like right now I have three different ones here, but two is made up of image and one is made up of text. I have one that are combined here. I can also have, if I am using in multiples of four, basically, that is my text has to reduce my, like I mentioned the other time, so I can have one that actually combines just basically an image, and then the other one can be made of text like this. So with this, I'm able to then say, yeah, I have this in mobile. How does this actually work on I have this in web. How does this actually work on web? So I'll try to copy my artboard from here. I've created uh, some responsive guidelines here. So for this type here, if I'm trying to duplicate what I actually have here to the mobile screen, the first thing I'll pick will be the text. When I arrange my text first to the grid, basically, when I arrange my text to the grid first, stays here, then I'll bring my images. So like I mentioned earlier, most things stack on mobile. So let's say I bring my first image here, it stretches to the hand. Also bring the second one, stretches to the hand. And one of the things you like to take note of is your margins. A lot of us design, by the way, let me just, so that I want to make sure I keep these guys. Yeah. So for this one, let's say this one, I bring this one also, it stacks here. Stacks here. You can try to adapt to the screen size. And if I'll just duplicate this guy. I'll also duplicate this guy here. Then for this one is a bigger one. So basically, it's almost going to take the same style these guys have taken. So it will also come like this. Basically. So yeah, what we are looking at here is similar to what we actually have to the right. It's just that the difference is the screen size they have. So on my desktop, I was able to have a very broad design where everything is not stacked, everything is separate. But when it comes to mobile, this same guy stays here, but the images beside it are below it right now. And these guys that are stacked to each other, this is like first column, second column, top column, are now stacked 1, 2, and 3. So basically, that is how responsiveness comes to design. And if I stretch this, you can see some of them are sticky and some of this is not in an auto layout. That's why it's doing like that. Basically. At this point, is there any question that you like to ask about what I'm doing? Because you guys can actually talk on the mic rather than text sometimes. You can just raise your hand if you want me to. Alam, can you ask something? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I'll mute you. Just raise up your hand. Let me see you guys.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, my question is why applying the grid? So I noticed that there's a column, but you've not been using the rule. Why is that? Or is it not necessary?
What did you say?
I mean, why applying the grid style, the grid? So you apply
Yeah.
the column, and not the rule. Is it that is not important?
So majorly we design using the columns. Like I said, the rules are majorly used by the developers. So the column is the right way we go because we are designing for landscape design and stuff. So if I'm using, let me show you how the rule looks like. Basically, let me just do this guy and change it. So the rules are like this, and basically, like I said, these are still my rules. You get? So most times I'm trying to match my portrait view rather than the landscape view. So if I'm matching my landscape view, I design using my columns, and the rules should be imaginary in my head. The rules are how I actually lay out these foundations, basically, rather than using stuff. So it's there, but majorly it's mostly skipped by designers. The rules are more important to the developers than us, the designers. So is that fine? Okay, I have Atinuke also.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, when we were working with the first frame, it was divided into like 3 sections, but transferring it to the other smaller frame, it's like you place it on a straight this thing. What if we are working with like a design? How do we, maybe the frame is small, how do we apply it to the other frame, or why are you arranging it on a straight line?
Oh, okay. So the reason I arrange it on a straight line is because, like I said, the screen is smaller, one, and if you notice here, I have these guys in four grids. Basically, is majorly what is also here. Don't mind me that I have them in one grid in this one. Basically, when it comes to mobile, one grid is okay. So far, all you need to set is your margins, basically, and you can design using your idea on the screen. Because majorly a whole container, um, one one container is one container here is like four columns. So when I bring it here, I'm still trying to maintain that size. So if I bring it here, I want to make sure it actually aligns on a container, so it won't be smaller when it comes to mobile. Do you understand me? So when it gets here, it's still maintaining that container size, and it's just stretching to fit the mobile size, and then you can then scroll through. So you can see the length of what we have right now is longer than what we actually have on web, because the web actually has a more width to take in a lot of things. There are different ways this can be interpreted by developers and designers. Actually, it depends on the kind of content that you have here. Right now, this kind of content, it's a readable content, things that you can read. That's why I prefer to actually bring it down. If it's more of, let's say I have something like this. Just give me a minute. If I have more of something like this box, let's say this box is not an image, but it's just a container for my design. Let's say I am creating multiple testimonials on pages. Basically, let's say then I have let's say right here I have testimonials. Let's say this guy I have testimonials, and I duplicate this guy. You get, I duplicate this guy. These are like testimonials. I'm just using testimonials as a sample of how I can actually interpret this as a designer. So these are testimonials, and I actually want to bring it to mobile view. You understand? But because it's a testimonial, what is the importance of my users scrolling through testimonials? These are like one of the things all the users are not going to look at, basically. So I wouldn't want to stress my user to actually read everything at once. So one of the things I can do is, when I bring it to mobile, it turns into more of like an accordion. So it stays like this. Then I can then say, instead of overlapping and coming like this, why not just stay like this and turn into something more of a carousel, if you understand what carousel means. Yeah, more of a carousel. It says that it shows the user that, oh, you can scroll through this particular view.
Okay. But in the design, is it not looks like the way it is outside the frame?
I can't hear you. What did you say?
But will it make sense the way it's outside the frame, like in the design? Is it not going to look weird?
Yeah, it's not really going to look weird. It depends on how you finalize it. Okay, let me just finalize this for you so that you understand what I mean. Okay, let me bring this guy into this guy. So I'm very sure you have seen interactions that happens like this before. Basically, and I say each of them should expand to this. So I'm trying. Is someone talking? Yeah. So I'm coming. Let me play this guy so that you understand what I mean. So right now, let me do some settings. So right now, if you are browsing and on mobile, what I will just do is, okay, for this one, let them scroll. Let my users be able to scroll. Okay. Right. So what I'm trying to say is now that I have this guy like this, but on my mobile it is like this, but they are hidden context. So I have a carousel to actually show that a user that they are hidden content, and you can say I try to stylishly bring the next content here. So the idea is I have three, I still have them in three, but they are still occupying one by one. So basically, as a user, the kind of interactions you will have on the mobile is for you to actually scroll, then it shows the next one, then the third one also comes in as you scroll. So depending on the kind of interaction you want to give a mobile user will determine how you actually convert in the responsive size. So my responsive size here says on this page, I try instead of using this style, I stack them because they are more of important information. But I feel on this information is more of a marketing gig, is more of a testimonial. I can show it one by one by user swiping. I'm sure if you use Instagram and you post a lot of things at once, it's not going to show everything at once, but it allows you to swipe through. So that's kind of interaction that we apply here because one, it is mobile. We have a limited things we can show at once. So there are different ways for you to actually interpret. There are different ways for you to interpret how you actually use the screen. So did I answer your question?
Yes, I get you. But does that mean with time you teach us how we can move the slide and to be interactive? Like like clicking on the second dot, like with time you are going to teach us how we can like do it, maybe prototype or something, such that when we click on the second, this thing is going to move.
Yeah. That's prototyping. We've not got into that.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other question? Okay, I can see someone else raising up their hand. Ofunze Shiamaka Happiness. Do you have anything? Okay, let me just a minute.
Okay. Can you hear me? Good morning.
Yeah, I can hear you. Good morning.
Okay. Sorry, I actually got lost when you were talking about how to make the responsive design, this thing, grids and all that. I didn't quite understand that part. I don't know if it's okay for you to repeat that part. But every other thing I'm following it.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, just for the last time, let's create our frame. Desktop. So here on Figma, if you want to create your layout grid, you come to the layout grid here and click on the plus button. Basically, it creates one for you, and you can then choose the style you want, which we are using columns right now. And following these rules by Bootstrap, basically, for any screen larger than your 1200 pixel, we use a 12 columns basically. So I set my columns to 12. So right now it's on 5. 12. My gutter to 30, which is visually 15 pixels on each side, and I just set my margins to 30. Basically, that's how I'm able to create create a layout on Figma. But there's something I missed earlier, which is the max container width. Basically. Basically, for them, your max container width will actually be 1440. So if I'm going to be using container width here, my margin will be more than 30. It will be about 150. Basically. So why I have this 150 right now is if my max container width has to be 1440, meaning from the distance from here to here should be 1440. So our designs will be will be 1140, sorry, not 1440. So if I'm going to, that is the distance from the first column to the last column will actually be 1440. So for me to get my margins, which I used 150 right now, is because I minus 1140 from my design, which is 1440, which gives me 300. And if I'm going to be adding 300 margins, that is, I have to divide by 2, which then give me 150 at each end, basically. So that's how you create your responsive design screens. And for you duplicate this across boards. Basically, my sample here for mobile, you duplicate it. So the settings for mobile is 4 columns for this particular grid site, which is the Apollo design system. Basically, they have their mobile to be 4 columns. Like I also mentioned, you can have your mobile in 1 column. Basically, it's a mobile screen, and you won't be having 2 layers of things on a particular row too much, basically. And for their tablet, they are using 8 columns. For their other tablet, 8 columns, and then for mobile, 12 columns. So yeah, and as I also mentioned earlier, you can easily lay out. So I'm just using this sample for us. I kind of stayed trying to get some things available for this class so that we can just look through. So basically, like I shared earlier, for this small screen, we have these designs like this, and when it stretches to a bigger screen, it's still maintaining the designs I have, but it's more bolder, more bigger right now. And if it gets when it gets to bigger screen, it also still maintains. Basically, the only time you have things not maintaining well is in extra small size. Like you can see when it comes to the extra small, which is like the mobile screen, the images stack with each other, then the text comes down. This is majorly because text is down here. That's why it is actually down. So so yeah, that's all. That's like this pointer about how responsive design starts, and there are some links I'll be dropping after class for you to actually get more used to what the responsive designs are, basically, so that you can read more. There's little to what I can say here. Basically, I think most of the knowledge will come about you trying to practice and about you are trying to learn more outside this class, basically. Where do you start? So if you want to actually let me unmute, you just raise your hand. I will do that. Okay, wisdom, you have a question, please, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. My question is still on what you just did right now. What you were subtracting for you to get the 150 for margin left and margin right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. What were you subtracting? You were subtracting
Okay.
one. I just want to know what the math you did there, please.
Okay. Like I mentioned earlier, so it's for this design system, it has a max container width of 1140 for an extra large screen. So the max container I can actually have, where I can design from on a particular screen, has to be 1440. So if I'm creating my layout, what I need to do was, what is the size of my screen? 1440. Then 1440 minus 1140 gave me 300, right? So if I'm going to have 300 margin, what I need to do, my margin is always going to apply to left and right. You understand? So to the left, how much do I need? 150. To the right, how much do I need? 150. I add that together, which is 300. Then I add the 150, because for every margin, if I say 20 right now, it is going to give me let me just show you. It's going to give me 20 to the right, and also 20 to the left. You understand? So if I'm trying to get my container to be 1440 and 1140, all I just need to do is change my margin to 150. So my margin at both sides will now be 150 if we try to measure it. So if I try to measure from now, you can see right now it's showing me 150. And now it's showing me 150. So far, if you're following a guideline, there are different guides you can follow to actually start create your breakpoints. For this particular guide, I'm following the Bootstrap one, which tells me the number of the max container I need to have for my layout, basically. So it's just a simple bit of mathematics, you will be able to get it. So someone said, where do you start your content snapping? First column or second column? So I'm guessing you are talking about this logic tech design, right? That is Mark who you need. Let me put on it. Yeah, Mark, you can go.
All right, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
So yeah, I noticed in this Logitech design, right, the content snapping started from second column, right? But when
Yeah.
you were doing the little content just designed, we started from the first column. So I was wondering, so normally where should your content start from when it comes to the column? Do you stick to the first column or the second column or anything that just works for you?
So I don't think there's a rule to that. So what you're saying for the Logitech one is basically their choice, and the number of contents on the page. So if this design was finalized, I'm sure some will actually still fall on the first column, but they will not pass more than this column, basically. So it depends on what you're doing and the kind of content you're working with. That's going to determine where they all start. And you can see for the other small designs, they're actually starting at their first columns rather than at the second. So the number of screen space you have, the number of screen size you have, is going to determine how it looks. So here you can see I'm starting from the first column, and it's not going to look bad. Here too, starting from the first column, and it's going to look awesome. No, it's going to be depending on the kind of content you actually have.
Oh, okay.
All right. Any other question? All right. I think nobody. So if you still, I know I've unmuted some people before, but if you are still raising your hand, I want to make sure that those that are raising their hands are still available, are still trying to ask questions, so you can drop your hand so that we can just wrap things up. Makoyeni, you still have a question? All right. Okay. So the next thing I would like to talk about will be grit. Basically, I didn't talk too much about this over the time we've spoken, but let's just get some things about grit also. So for this, I'll be using let's say Android, Android for screen design. So this is also a kind of layout we use. Majorly is used on the mobile section. So if I want to create a grid, I start with grid, then my size will be majorly 8. Yeah. So grids are used in place of layout design, and I commonly use it when I'm actually designing for mobile screens, majorly mobile apps, not for responsiveness also, basically. And this grid, the major type of grids we have are the 10-point grid and the 8-point grid. I stick to the 8-point grid, basically, so that most screen sizes are like in multiples of 8, in multiples of 4, basically. So personally, I stick to the 8-point grid. And with this 8-point grid, I also it helps me to design. It helps me when I'm trying to design my element, basically. So right now the grids are in squares and they are in multiples of 4. So if I draw a square right now, and any stuff right now, and I snap it to my grid, let's say, yeah, I have a height of 56, and basically it's in multiples of 8. So if I divide this by 8, it gives me 8. Yeah. So we design with 80 numbers, and on mobile, most of the screen designs we do are always in multiples of 8, in multiples of 4s, basically, and it helps to just give you a spacing idea, on how to actually space your elements and stuff. With that, I think I should just show you a sample of spacing. Yeah. Sorry, this a personal project. Let me just copy this guy and bring them in. Yeah. So most times, this grid is what I'm using right now, which is in multiples of 8. The grid is basically to help you align how you actually space out your elements in designs. Let's say I'm trying to design a mobile app. Let me just use text here to actually say, okay, I'm designing an home page. Let's say this is my text font. Start the font at 24. Let's say my font says welcome mobile. And I have, let's see, a rectangle here. Rectangle here. what happens is this grid is what I used to basically design and then measure how I space my elements. Basically, so let's say I have something else here. Quick actions. Basically, yeah. So my sizing basically is going to be determined by this grid. So I try to match them to grid so that one, I have uniform spacing styles. So depending on the kind of elements I'm using, right now in my spacing guide, I use from 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 to 24 to 32 based on the screen type and the arrangement. So right now, if I'm saying I'm designing something this close, basically I'm using 8 pixel, and here I'm using multiples of 8, which is 16, because I'm trying to give a breather between this guy and this guy. And these are like common elements. So I'm trying to use just this minimum one, which is 8 among them. So what helps me to get out this layout well is the grid system. So I create a grid and I use that to design. I won't be saying too much on this. I will be dropping some links after the class on the channel to show you how you actually use grids and stuff. And one last thing when creating layouts that I didn't mention also is on Figma, you can actually save your layout. Basically, and if it has a style, and you can come back to it. So if I like what I've created here, I can easily click on this button to add it as a grid style, and then I can name it like design power. I've created it as a style, basically, and I can add more. I can say, okay, let me remove. If I remove this guy, I can add and then select from it. It will automatically just apply it to the stuff. So you can also just save your design, your layout grids on as a style. And if I create a new frame, I say, oh, I want to repeat this grid, this layout grid. All I just need to do is use this button, then click on it. It applies it to. So anytime I'm designing, I can just save. Let's say I've saved for my desktop. I can save this one too as a file. Let's say iPad mini, basically. So I can come here and say, oh, I want to change this guy. I can remove it and change it to the design one. You can see it is adapting to what I actually need. So that if you get your style, like if I've created all this style, every time I'm designing, I can just import them from any of the style that I've actually saved on my Figma file, basically. So right now, sorry, Atinuka, do you still have a question? So I can see a question for project we were not given the Bootstrap documents. How can we determine the margin while designing, or can we use the calculation it gives generally? So there are different systems that people actually use. Basically, there are different systems. We have material designs. we have material design, we have different, we have human design. Human design is by iOS. Is right. So they are guides that almost are like standards of ways you actually design. So let's go to layout for material here. Basically. So um, we also have then the one I shared here, which is so they are like standard ways. They are almost identical. So it's going to be depending on what your engineers are working with and what you're also working with, basically. So they are like different guidelines that actually shows how best you actually use these designs. So these are various design systems that are available from different companies. So each companies actually have their own design system and define how they look. The one I worked on personally, also I have that for myself. That okay, this is how layout should be, basically, and spacing. So it's going to be determined by you, but with you determining that, always try to follow the standards that a lot of people are using already. So you can always get this online, just search through material design, search through human guidelines, Atlassian design system. They have like standards of where they say, okay, this is our breakpoint. And a max of like 5 breakpoints should be good for you to go from the smallest to the highest, basically. So just putting it close to this class, basically, uh, I'll just do a quick recap on what we've said so far. Basically, one of the standard rules in design, one of the most common grids you use throughout design is a self-column grid, and your rules are your imaginary rules that you align them with, basically. For responsive designs, your responsive designs will always have breakpoints, and you should try to limit the number of breakpoints you have, basically to like 5 or 6 or the max. But I think majorly it is 5 that are used across board, basically. And you can always follow different, check out different design systems to actually see the type of breakpoints that are available for you to use on your screens when you're actually designing for responsiveness. This will always help you out in the sense that you get accustomed to a particular one and you keep on using that. Actually, I don't think I use anything other than this as a designer. Basically, even when I'm trying to create my design systems, I try to figure out that I've used the CSS grid rules on it, so I just stick to it, basically. And with that, I'll be available to answer any other questions that are actually available. So you guys can shoot if you have other questions, even if it's about past classes or today's class or any other thing you can ask. Hi, Mark. Yes, the class will be made available on YouTube. I think it's been recorded. Okay. 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 So I'll just do a quick recap on Breakpoint. So when you are designing, I showed go.com the other time, so I'll still use go.com. So when you're designing, you're designing just a page, but you want it to be accessible on multiple devices, multiple screens. You understand? So how are these supposed to show on multiple screens? That's where responsiveness comes in. And as a designer, most times we design on one screen, then try to duplicate for other screens. Duplicating for other screens is called factoring all screen sizes into your designs, basically. So one layout might work well on a particular screen, and it might not work well on another screen. So this kind of layout works well on, let's say, if you can, please let me know if you can see my screen. This layout works well on multiple screens. Right now, this layout works well, but when it's getting to this screen, it is no longer working. So it's adapted the design. Like if I go a step below above, this is what we currently have here. This is what we still have here. it is still the same design, but at a particular point, there's like a break. There's a time where the design says, I cannot bring this guy to look like this on a smaller device. So when it gets to a smaller device, it changes its layout. So the change of layout, the time when you actually change that layout is called the breakpoint. You still have the same designs, but you have it in a different layout, but mimicking the same experience, basically. So right now I'm at a breakpoint here. If I go to another screen, it's still mimicking the design, it's just smaller, but it's still a breakpoint. But if I go a step above, this is how it shows. If you can just try to keep note of, this is a first layer, it has another layer here, it has another layer here, it has another layer here, another one here. But when I go to mobile, all those layers, it make them respond to the screen size. So there were a bit of changes here. This image before was below. It brought it to the side because it is in a smaller screen and it is visible more like that. So it brought those ones to the side. It removed some that had images, removed them actually. Then it made it more usable on phone. If I go anything smaller, I've gone smaller now, but the design didn't change because at that breakpoint, it can still adapt to that design. All it needs to do is stretch and retract on this screen. So breakpoint at the point where your layout changes. You get, because the same layout might work well on one screen side, but not on a similar larger or smaller one. You get, breakpoint literally break up the design in little ranges, and within those ranges, a certain design can be displayed. You understand? So like this person might have started this design from mobile first. Then when the person starts increasing, is increasing to tablet. The person increase it again, increase to a web view. And as it's increasing, you can see the change that is happening here is not much. It's no longer much. It's just trying to adapt to the screen size. And if I close this guy, it will always look like this. So if I go to the same website on the mobile, it will be showing me the same content, but in a different different way. That is, it is going to align it in a different way. That is where breakpoint comes in. So the screen size you are designing for are your breakpoints, basically. And like I said, there are different breakpoints used by multiple designers. And one of the most standard one is the ones provided by Bootstrap, where you are designing your breakpoint is the extra small screen, the medium, the large, and the extra large, basically. Does that answer the question? All right. All right. All right. Any other question? So how do you set your breakpoint? Any other question? Okay, so if there are no other questions, I think we will just be closing the class from here. So what next is I'll be sharing some links about grids, layouts, and stuff on the design channel, and also maybe I'll try to create a design in mobile for you guys. Then you guys can see if you can try to make it responsive on two other screen types, maybe an iPad or a web browser screen, basically. Is that fine by everyone? Okay, so just before I go, basically, sorry for any hiccups that happened during the class. I'm just getting used to talking to a large number of people, basically. I know by the next time I come here, I'll do better. Okay, someone said the breakpoint is still confusing. Okay, can I just ask one question? Does anybody understand the breakpoint? Okay. 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 So I think I'll just allow someone to actually talk. Maybe the person can explain what he or she understands by breakpoint. Okay, Mark, you can go.
Okay, so basically what breakpoint is that, so if you look at your mobile phone, the way the content is being displayed on your mobile phone is not the same way it's being displayed on the web version, right? So let me give you an example of Jumia now. If you visit your Jumia website on your phone, the way the products are tagged and the way they are displayed is not the same thing. It's not the same way to display on the web browser if you use your laptop, right? So that's a breakpoint. So breakpoint basically means when people are visiting this same product or this same product on various screens, how do the content align together? How do they get to be displayed, right? The screen size you have on your mobile phone is not the same screen size you have on your desktop. So if you're trying to align your content the way it appears on the screen size on the mobile to the way it will appear on the desktop, meaning you're not using the entire space you have on your web browser, right? So the same way now, if you're on your web browser now, the way you align your content cannot be displayed on your mobile phone. If you try to display it on your mobile phone, it will become unreadable, right? So that's where breakpoint comes into play. So how do I then this same content that is on the web browser, how do I then replicate it for a smaller screen so that they can still be able to see all the content in a way that it will be appealing to them and they will still be able to read it, so, right? So then the content then changes, which is where the breakpoint comes into place, right? So you get to determine the breakpoint in your design. So the way the design appears on the mobile screen is definitely going to be different from the way to appear on the desktop screen. So basically, that's what breakpoint is all about. But I was also having that confusion about, okay, does the breakpoint just set itself by itself, right, automatically? So no, right? So I think I've got to understand that. No, when you're doing your design, you be the one to know, okay, on mobile, this way to appear, I want the content to be stacked like this, while on tablets, this is where the content also appear.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. So someone said also that he doesn't know how to duplicate it on other screens. So I did an example. I'm not sure if you saw that, but I'll try to do another example now. So this is a mobile screen, and we are transferring it to a larger screen. Basically, let me just duplicate the content here. You get, but what is it? I have extra spaces here, and I figured I can actually use more of the what's the name? More of the spaces here to actually design. So what I'll do is select each of these elements, match it to a particular grid. Let me say, okay, this one can come here. Let's say, okay, you go here and then you go here, managing this. Then I bring my content here, my text here. You get. This here and this here and this here. So yeah, I've duplicated this guy for this bigger screen. I can say, okay, I'm taking it to the next screen. All I just need to do is duplicate, try to resize to fit this guy. So most times I can even just go like this and be like, okay, it's getting out of, and then try to align it to the grids. This one also align to the grids. Work on this guy, bring this guy down. In multiples of 8, I can reduce this text to bring this one. You can see it's response to the size of this guy. If I bring this one also, I bring it to a larger screen. I have more screen space to use here, so I can easily just drag basically, and let's say, yeah, I wish it's like this. Then try to align everything to look perfect. So this is me duplicating the same design. When it came to this bigger screen, I separated them. Instead of stacking them like this, I brought it here, which I also maintained on this other screen and still maintained on this screen because I have the space to actually maintain it. So that's how you actually, this is how you then duplicate designs for different screens, basically. And you can only start from, as designers, we start from this screen. I can start from this screen and then come down, but most times in development they start from mobile, then grow it till they reach the final one. So these are like the breakpoints I've set that, okay, this is my large, medium, small, extra small. So this is like a standard breakpoint that we all use, but the only thing that is not standard about them is the sizes of each of your breakpoints. But that's why I said you can just use your Bootstrap to actually say, okay, these are the sizes of the breakpoints that we have. Do we now understand better? Hello? All right, great. like I said, the mobile can have 4 columns also. I just restricted it to single column. They can actually have 4 columns. You understand? I can adapt the same. Let me show you something. I can adapt the same 4 columns I used in one of these screens. Actually, yeah, this one on it. It will be the same. I only use 1 column because it's a small device, and a lot of times I'll actually be using the whole 4 columns at once. That's why I just restricted it to 4, to 1. I could just say, okay, let's say change to columns. The count will be 4, and my margin will be 16. It's still the same. You can see it's falling at the same 1 column I actually had before. But because most times I won't be using the kind of designs I'll be doing here, I can't be using just 2 of these colors as for each most times. So most times I'll be using the full width. That's why I used 1 column. So 1 column or 4 columns is actually very okay on mobile. All right. So thank you guys for attending to this class. Before this evening, I'll be dropping some links to you like I promised, and maybe I'll also do a sample of, like, let's say a mobile screen. Then I'll send the Figma file to you guys. Then you guys can duplicate and see how best you can actually interpret them for the other screens, and also read more about layout grids on design systems. I think I'll drop some links also for the design systems that I know that I normally visit, and maybe I can also send one that I've created before, basically for you to actually then see how they work. I think I'll be meeting you guys again in the next 2 weeks. So before then, one thing I'll just say is you guys should try to practice as much as possible. The extra time you have, you should try to use it to practice. You might not be saying too much in the meetings, but the practice is going to be the game changer for all of you, basically. So once again, thank you for attending this class, and we'll see you in our next class. Thank you, guys. And if you have any other question, you can always buzz me on Slack. I'll try to respond. I might respond late, but I'll try to respond.